Hello and welcome to Searching for Service, brought to you by Rotary District 5950 and 5960. I'm Kelly Kirk.
And I'm Joe Kirk.
And before we dive into who our next special guest is, Joe is going to remind us of the show's purpose.
Yeah, the show's purpose is to unite not only Rotarians, but non-Rotarians around service. And the way that we've decided to present it in the show is to have amazing people on that talk about service opportunities, the power of Rotary, and the amazing things that Rotary can do in partnership with other organizations. And that's really been a success for us so far. Don't you think, Kelly?
I would say so. I love that you can just like shoot from the hip on that too. It's wonderful. I have all these notes in front of me and my husband is just like, woo, off the top of his head. It's amazing. So let's dive into who our guest is today. We have Kim Lorenz on, who is a fellow Rotarian. And I think I'm just going to let you, Kim, take it away on why you are here on our show today. And let's go ahead and dive in.
How'd you like that?
I know.
Kim, tell us about yourself. The level of which Kim is involved in Rotary and partnerships around the world is pretty fascinating. We're really excited to hear about that in the future segments. But let's just talk about you and where are you from? Where do you come? Where do you come from?
Yeah, I live in Bellevue, Washington, near Seattle, Washington, and joined Rotary in 1981. And I was a business person. I joined, one of my customers drugged me into a Rotary meeting, and I got involved with Rotary. I sold my companies in the late 90s and got more involved with Rotary. And so I'm a Rotarian, but I've done some extraordinary things within Rotary that I was asked to look into by the Rotary Foundation, and that's the subject of your podcast.
Yeah. And did you serve within your Rotary Club in any sort of other leadership positions other than, what you're obviously doing now as the liaison?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was, you asked the question, Joe. I actually tried to quit the club, I think, in the late 80s. I was busy like so many of us are. And the president called me up and he said, you generally have lunch every day. Why don't, you're with people, we have good speakers. And he convinced me to stay in Rotary, and I'm just so glad that he did. So I did become the club president in the, I think, 1990, which is ancient.
So you went from quitting to being the president.
Well, I was quitting in 87, and by 1990, 91, I'm the president of the club. And then I am involved with our district. I'm a major donor to the Rotary Foundation. So
thank you for that.
Involved in a number of positions within our district here.
Do you remember your first service project that you were part of? I mean, I know that's a deep pull for you, but
no, I was not involved with the collaborations that we do now, and but I'm also a major donor to World Vision. So we're going to talk about the collaboration between the two and how that got started. But I went on a trip with World Vision. It really had nothing to do with Rotary, and I was in Nicaragua. And went out to these villages, and I was really curious how World Vision really worked and the nuts and bolts of it. I've got an MBA, so I was, how do these people finance all this, and what's their overhead? Is this really a worthwhile organization? And that was why I was on the trip. And we were just in a little village, and they needed water, and so there was some discussion about how much they needed for a water project. So myself and those of us in the bus or the van, we all just talking to each other could raise the $180,000 that they needed. And that was my first project I got involved with. But it really wasn't through the Rotary Foundation. It was just my club kicked in $30,000. I put in some money. The others in the bus did. But because I was involved with, you didn't ask this question, but the next step was, how did I get involved with World Vision and Rotary? I started doing work at World Vision in their boardroom, and I'd bring in some of my friends for economic development and microfinance. They're one of the world's largest microfinance lenders. And I just really got into this economic development and microfinance. And so I got to meet the president of World Vision. He would come into the boardroom and give us supposed to be a 10-minute talk. You could never get them to stop talking. So I wasn't employed. I'd say, okay, Rich, that's enough. You're done. You can't talk anymore. And so he always got a kick out of these things we were doing together. So I got a call one day from the president of World Vision, and he said, hey, we don't have anybody here that knows anything about Rotary, and the Rotary Foundation is coming in to have a big meeting with us. Would you come down and join us? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. So I went down and sat in the meeting. The next thing I know, I'm on an airplane going to Ethiopia. But I was asked to see if there was a way that World Vision, the world's largest NGO, non-government organization in the world, they're about a $3 billion organization, and they're doing water, health, education, economic development, food security, environmental, all these things that, as Rotarians know, are now the 7 areas of focus of Rotary. World Vision's doing this every day in the field. And so it was the head of the Rotary Foundation was there, and so I was specifically asked, could you investigate, is there a way that our 2 organizations can work together?
Sure.
And I said I would. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I was just thinking, like, you're our first guest that, like, your experience in Rotary is so large and macro. You know, a lot of our guests, they're talking about the club level. This has been so much fun to listen to already, like to hear about like the volumes of money, like the size amounts, and then also the influence, like you talked about, you know, bringing in some of your business contacts and people. You're obviously been very successful in your career, and you've been able to leverage those relationships on a macro sense and really seeing the impact at just a different level. It's kind of I think it's great for our listeners because it's so easy to get. We talk so much about like the club level and like, you know, your community level, but we're talking about big swings, big hits, you know, $6 billion, you know, NGO that we're partnering with that's matching funds, which we'll get into that a little bit more down the road, and really supercharging these projects and helping a lot of people. And I like your approach to like why you got involved is you wanted to understand the business component of it. Like, how does this work?
I have an MBA and I want to know more.
Wait a second. I want to know how all this works. And I really appreciate that. And I think our viewers are going to, and our listeners are going to appreciate that different perspective. So let's kind of keep that in mind as we're talking through all of these subjects, is this is going to be coming from a very large scale and kind of that big place. So, you know, I guess, do you have a favorite project that you worked on that you felt that really struck your heartstrings or, you know, meant something to you?
Oh, absolutely. I could tell you many stories, but let me first clarify one thing. World Vision is a faith-based organization. They're the largest in the world, and they do about $400 million a year with the U.S. government, but they get funds from thousands of corporations, Walmart, Chevron, and whatnot, to facilitate projects in countries where it means something to those organizations. So, as an example, Honduras, when Hurricane Mitch came through, the first $7 million of U.S. aid went straight to World Vision Honduras. Because I think most people, particularly Rotarians, know that if you just give blank checks to these big governments, most of them are corrupt and they don't end up going where they're supposed to go. So with that in mind, I'm often asked, how can Rotary deal with a faith-based organization? And they can't. There's absolutely no religion allowed in any of the Rotary projects, but in most countries, it's capital punishment for an NGO to proselytize or do anything with religion in the work that they do. It's not allowed. So this is really straight up. And about 6 months after, so the head of the Rotary Foundation asked me specifically if I would see if we could make this work for both sides. It's difficult for Rotary. It's difficult for World Vision. Partnerships are difficult, period. Yeah. In most instances. And so about 6 months after we started, I got a letter from the Rotary Foundation, an official letter saying cease and desist. And I was, that's okay, good. I don't have to do this. I'm not on their payroll. And I got a call the next day from Hoagie Hogan, the head of the Rotary Foundation, and he said, "I think you got a letter." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Just throw it away. We specifically asked you to do something. We want you to continue seeing if you can make it work." So now we're up to 30 million in these projects. But your specific question, I've done many of these now. I think we're 36 different projects. But my first time to Honduras, the Minneapolis Rotary District, where I think you are, 5950,
Yep.
wanted to go to Honduras. We had just finished a $1.5 million project in Uganda. And they wanted to go to Honduras because it's easier for members of your district to visit Honduras than it was to get to Africa. So I go down first and I meet with this local Rotary Club and the World Vision staff to make sure they understand how to partner and whatnot. And then we go out and we visit the villages together. And so we went out to maybe 5 of the 30 or so villages we were going to do the project in. And this was the special one that really kind of tugged at my heartstrings. When we wrote it up and Minneapolis decided they wanted to fund it, it then goes to the Rotary Foundation. And on these big projects, they have to send a specialist to approve it. So I go back down and I'm with a specialist and I go to these same 5 villages. So I'm sitting in a little teeny town in the border of El Salvador in a little teeny room, a schoolhouse. And I'm sitting with the kids in the little chairs, and up in front was all the big shots, the Rotary head guy and the World Vision people and the Rotary Club. We want that local Rotary Club in front of everything. That's part and parcel of all this. And all of a sudden during this, a woman in the back, the parents were standing in the back and started speaking, and the whole room got quiet. My interpreter stopped speaking, and I turned around, and this woman's not even 5 feet tall. And I have no idea what she was saying. So the meeting ends, we go outside, and I said to the Rotary cadre, they call him the official, and I said, "What was that woman saying?" And he said, "Kim, she was talking about you." And I said, "What do you mean, me? What?" She said, "You're the only person who's ever come back, who's ever been there and discussed water, and then actually came back." And she knows you were sent by
really
God.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Kim, I don't mean to break you off. Speaking of coming back, we've got to come back from a break here.
All right.
So Kelly, lead us out of here.
Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to Searching for Service. We'll be back in the next section. I'm Kelly Kirk.
And I'm Joe Kirk. Stay tuned.
And welcome back to Searching for Service, brought to you by Rotary District 5950 and 5960. I'm Kelly Kirk.
And I'm Joe Kirk.
And as a reminder, you can find us on your favorite podcast platforms and
Searching for Service, and you'll be able to find us on any of the platforms that you listen to. And we do love those 5 gold star reviews.
It's look up.
Look up. That's right.
Searching for Service. I remembered it just as you were doing it.
Fine.
So if you're tuning in for the first time, this is our second segment of Searching for Service, and we have Kim Lorenz on, who's a fellow Rotarian. He is a Rotary liaison for World Vision, and he was telling us an incredible story, and then we had to unfortunately cut him off. So we're gonna let him finish that story. Go ahead, Kim.
So I'm in this little schoolhouse, and everybody got quiet, and this little woman was speaking in the back, and I couldn't understand it. So as we went outside, the Rotary cadre, he's the person that has to approve. This is an $800,000 project that we're trying to get approved with the Rotary Foundation. It turned out to be a $1.4 million project by the time we finished. But anyway, I go outside and I said to the cadre, "What was that woman speaking about?" And he said, "Kim, she was talking about you." I said, "What?" And she says she knows you were sent by God, that she's been praying for someone, but you are the only person who ever came to the village and discussed water and then came back. So I looked at the cadre and I said, "You son of a gun, you better approve this thing." And he said, "Kim, this is a no-brainer. This is a great project. It's a done deal." And it did get approved. And when we went back to the finish, when the project was finished for the celebration trip with your Rotarians from 5950, we went back to that village. And her name is Maria Lopez. And I've got a picture of me with my arm around her, the Rotary brochure that I sent you and is available to Rotarians. And she got the microphone. We had a little microphone there, and she said, "My name is Maria Lopez. I'm 70 years old, and our well dried up when I was 16. And if you saw where these women, and it's always the women getting water anywhere in the world, how far she had to go and the water she was getting and the stuff happening upstream from the water she's putting into her jerry jugs. It's just horrific. So you see that all over the world. There's now between 800 and 1,000 children dying every day from waterborne disease around the world. It used to be over 3,000. So headway is being made. And anyway, that one had a big impact. But everywhere I go, you just have a big impact.
Yeah, it's always nice to be able to tie it to moments like that, because it makes it seem like it's worthwhile, right? Like sometimes when we deal with things in abstraction, we lose like the real relevance of who we're helping and why we're helping them. And the thing that I'm always amazed of with water is just how much it impacts in people's daily lives. It's not just they can drink water. It's not just sanitation. It's education. It's mobility. I mean, it's everything. And it's incredible that we still have this problem. And, Joe,
it's getting better every day.
Yeah.
And your past district governor, Lloyd Campbell, was with us just a month or 6 weeks ago in Honduras. We visited a bunch of these small villages again, and there were women there saying that, we can't bathe ourselves for some 8 weeks at a time. We don't wash our hands because we can't waste the water. And that's one of the villages that is coming up in our next project. That project's funded. It's approved by the foundation. It has not started yet.
Okay.
But these projects, the way they started and the scale that you mentioned, to get an NGO like World Vision to get involved in all the work that has to go into it, they set a minimum that Rotary has to raise $400,000 minimum. And then World Vision has donors. They're not a foundation. They don't give money to Rotary or other organizations. They put up $400,000 towards the project. But what is it they're really doing, and what makes these so successful? After 20 years, I think 95% of World Vision water projects are still operating, where other organizations doing water, it's about 80% have failed within 5 years. And the big difference that most people don't understand, we call it the soft cost. But if you go into a community and just put a well in and leave, they don't know how to operate it. They don't know how to fix it. They don't have money to buy parts. They don't know where to buy parts. They can't do the maintenance. So when you do these projects, we have 100% of the community has to go through 10 days of the various trainings on the maintenance, the repair, on hygiene and sanitation. So water projects, as you probably know, are called WASH, water, sanitation, and hygiene. And so we started this years ago, and with his matching. And go ahead, Joel.
I was going to say, now that's my favorite part, and why I love hearing the Rotary stories is because there's a huge component of that sustainability. It's not just doing the project, it's keeping the project going. If anything, it's growing the project, kind of like what you're starting to see in Honduras there, where you can go to the next village and then the next one. And did that come from Rotary, or did that come from World Vision in terms of that sustainability component?
Yeah, I'll try to say this politically correct, but my first engagement on seeing a Rotary project was in Ethiopia, where Rotary did 25 wells. And one of my Rotarian friends, his club paid for a well. Now, this had nothing to do with World Vision. And it happened to be my Rotary club did this project in Ethiopia. So my friend went out to see his well. He came back that night. We were at a dinner with the district governor and with the head of USAID there. And I said, "Did you find the well?" He said, "I did." I said, "How does it do it?" He says, "Oh, it looks great. The pump's great. The cement's great. Everything's just perfect. Got a couple cows tied to it. It's never pumped a drop of water, but it looks great." I said,
oh my gosh.
And he said, "Well, the Rotary Club hired a contractor. They told him where to put the well. He goes out and does it exactly the way they spec'd it. The fact it didn't pump water wasn't part of the equation. and it's never pumped a drop of water. So it's World Vision is recognized globally as they currently today are providing more water to more people than any government or any other organization in the world. Hilton Foundation, I think now is at about 130 million they've funded.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk to these large foundations and why they deal with World Vision, and they'll tell you nobody in the world can do it as well. And most of it is that soft cost, training the community. They have their own drilling equipment, their own hydrologists, their own expertise, their health workers. These are things a local club can't do. They don't have the expertise or the time to go 2 hours away to a remote area of Honduras or Ethiopia and spend 10 days training a whole community.
Right.
The other one is a big Uganda project we did. A woman near my district, but a different district, had done 7 or 8 large projects, large being 50 to 100,000. And she heard me speak, and she came up and she said, no matter how hard we work, we can't get that last 25% done. That really is that part that makes it sustainable. Setting up the bookkeeping. These communities have to collect money from all the recipients of water, have people trained in maintenance repair, have spare parts, know where to get the parts. You make it a total project. And then the biggest thing that most people don't think about, the women spending this average of 6 hours a day getting water, they have to have the daughters go with them. Otherwise, they'll be abused in the community. So the girls are robbed of the opportunity to get an education. When we do our projects, we build beautiful latrines at every school. So the girls have the facilities they need. 100% of the community has to agree to stop outdoor defecation, and we provide all the materials for them to build their own latrines. They call them VIP outhouses. Ventilated, improved latrines is what VIP stands for. But here's the catch: is when you're done, you have from a 50 to 70% increase of girls that now can go to school. And once you educate the women, the girls in these communities, now the moms are spending 6 minutes a day instead of 6 hours. Those communities will never slide back to life they had before.
They probably allow themselves to, you know what I mean? They see this incredible opportunity. Yeah. I just wanted to ask you a question because we had a guest on here back a while ago. His name is Kyle Haugen, and he had the water project in Uganda. So does that name ring a bell?
No.
Okay.
I've done 4 projects there, and I don't know who he is. There's a lot of people doing water there.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Well, and something I was thinking of is, are you guys identifying downstream impacts like after these programs? So you talk about, so what's the after effect of 30% more women going to school? All of a sudden now, do they have problems with capacity with schooling? Do they have does it create, and these are good problems to have, right? And are we doing anything to address those as well? Or, how far can you go, right?
Yeah, well, it all starts with water. Once you've got the water, then you've got the health security, the health clinics. Those are all addressed. Those are things World Vision's doing and other organizations. The needs assessment in that community, they're all different. Then the building of the schools you go into in Honduras, we were just there, and all the school desks they provided by World Vision. They build the schools, they'll provide the materials in the schools. Food security is part of water. Now you've got irrigation and things you can do. The women particularly get involved with economic development. It's amazing what you can do. You get 10 to 12 women together. They all borrow $150 each. And World Vision, then in the economic development side, these are actual banks. They're called MFIs, microfinance institutions, that are chartered under the national bank. And they have people that go and train these women on how to start a business, ideas of what business to start, how to handle the funding and the mechanics of it, what a profit is, and often the husbands by this time, they've left the husbands because they it's frustrating around the world. It used to really bug me that the men did nothing. And a very learned World Vision woman who travels to Africa a lot, she said, "Hold on, Kim, that's the way they were brought up since they were babies, that you don't do women's work."
Well, speaking of leaving, Kim, we've got to leave this segment, but we'll get back to it on the other side.
We're doing a real good job right now.
Yeah, our time management is just top notch. I'm just so enthralled with the conversation that I'm losing touch with time. But Kelly, take us out.
As a reminder, you are listening to Searching for Service. I'm Kelly Kirk.
And I'm Joe Kirk. Stay tuned for the next segment.
Hello and welcome back to Searching for Service, brought to you by Rotary District 5950 and 5960. I'm Kelly Kirk.
And I'm Joe Kirk.
Go ahead.
Oh, and just drop it right there. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, Kim, I mean, we've been talking about some of the projects that we've done, how World Vision and Rotary partner together. And, you know, something that we've talked about, and we talked a little bit about this off air, is, you know, something that's really fascinating is the sustainability of these projects. And, you know, something that I was thinking about as we've been talking is, you know, you kind of touched on some of the challenges, but what do you think is the largest challenge of continuing the sustainability? Maybe you get the initial buy-in from the community. How do we partner with those communities from an ongoing standpoint to ensure that there's auditing and, you know, accountability that's taking place? Because I mean, there's huge amounts of money being spent, you know, and invested.
It's not going to waste.
Right. So what's the biggest challenge?
Yeah, it's a great question. When the Rotary Foundation put this together, the first project I was involved with happened to be Haiti. And the foundation came back and they said, there is no way you can put that kind of money through a 14-member club in Haiti. And so they asked World Vision, would you handle all the funds? So all of these projects have been done in this fashion. Even when I mentioned my story about the cadre in the little town in Honduras, I said, you need to approve this. He said, I hope you realize there's no way that kind of money could go through this small Rotary club. And I said, no, that's already handled. It's in our memorandum of understanding. We have a very detailed memorandum of understanding that we use for all these projects. So as I mentioned, Rotary has to raise a minimum $400,000. World Vision matches it. In a normal Rotary project, the money the clubs raise, and if they get matched from the Rotary Foundation, it goes to the small club in the project country. Mm-hmm. These projects, all the money comes back. In the case of Honduras, it went back to the club in 5950 to then send to World Vision in the United States. Then it's matched from World Vision in the U.S. It goes to World Vision in Honduras or Uganda, Ethiopia, wherever we're doing the project. So World Vision, and the bright part of this, if you talk to district governors and the headaches they've had at getting projects, getting a needs assessment done, getting the accounting done, getting the closing of the project when it's completed, World Vision does all that. They provide the needs assessment. They provide all the data that the district or the club needs to fill out the applications to the Rotary Foundation. They provide all the accounting. We've had a couple instances where the foundations, we want to audit it, and that's in our memorandum of understanding. So you've got a professional organization with all the accountability that can handle the audits, and they're just done very, very well. And most of the clubs, like in Honduras, they were very upset. No, we want the money. It's got to come to our club. We don't want to do it if we don't get the money. They agreed to do it, and the foundation sent Stephen Brown from San Diego. He's been a past trustee down there to evaluate these relationships. And that night at dinner, he said he wanted to have private conversations with the club all day while we were driving around. And he said, how do you feel about the fund handling? And he said, we were very upset. But then we realized as we've gotten into it, there's no way we had the capacity for the banking, the disbursement of the funds, and the accounting. We love it. And we're now doing our third project, and it's being funded this time at Sacramento District, but your district is involved with that same Rotary Club in Honduras that we started with. So the accounting's a big part of it, the reporting.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world to have an organization that has the systems and processes in place to scale.
Yeah.
Like maybe you could pull it off, but it's like, you know, you're going to pull it off going this direction. It takes a lot of the pain,
mental gymnastics.
Jeez. Well, and I mean, it's they do it so many times, right? I mean, they've got it down. So why would we reinvent the wheel? So that makes a lot of sense. You know, I'm just thinking a little bit more about, because I really like talking about the more business end of this too, because I do think that it gets lost in the service component, right? Is like a lot of the sustainability of these things is the business component. It's teaching the communities, it's having the accounting in place, being able to close out the project in the first place, and just talk a little bit about some of the maybe some of your learning curves in working with World Vision, with some of these projects, and how the sustainability works. I don't know if that's very clear.
Yeah, no, I don't think you'll find anywhere in the world projects that are more sustainable. And then if there is any issues with sustainability in organization, it'll come back. In Honduras, I think they have 37 local offices. In Uganda, when I did my first project, it was still an active war zone up inside Gulu, northern Uganda. The LRA, the Lord's Resistance Army, was still active. 30,000 12-year-olds had been kidnapped. That was the child soldiers you might have heard about over the years. World Vision operates a large facility there called the Children of War Center, and they've taken 15,000 of those children have been reunited with their families and communities. But when you get into sustainability and community relations, my first trip there, I went and met with the Rotary Club and explained what World Vision was and how we make these work. I had to meet with that local Gulu, Uganda World Vision office. They think Rotary is some rich guy's private club, and the Rotarian World Vision was some fanatical religious organization. And so then the next day we had a meeting all day. And by the way, out of that meeting is the memorandum of understanding that you get now from the Rotary Foundation. That's where it comes from. But it started in that meeting, and it was an all-day affair to come up with this memorandum. Tim Murphy out of your district was highly involved with that, and he and I have done a lot of work together. Just one of my most respected Rotarian friends in the world. But when the Rotarians walked into the room at the Children of War Center, I'm getting ready to introduce them, and they all have odd names to me. They're difficult to pronounce or spell, and the World Vision staff, they all stood up and they hugged each other. They went to school together. They grew up together. So that's one of the beauties of these collaborations, we call them, is you've got a local World Vision office and a local Rotary Club. And just a little aside, when I first met the president of the Rotary Club, he's a PhD professor named Gerald Obi. And I said, Gerald, what do you know about World Vision? And this was inside the war zone now in Gulu. And he said, looked at me very seriously, and I've found globally World Vision or Rotary people have great senses of humor. He looked at me very seriously and he said, World Vision drives dirty vehicles. And okay, what do you mean? And he said, Kim, there's 72 NGOs operating in Gulu because of the LRA and the war and whatnot. And he said, you drive around here, you'll see the schools where World Vision is built. You'll see what they're doing. You'll see them active in the field. They can tell you what they're going to do. Like I said, you can see what they've done. He said, most of the NGOs here drive to each other's offices for lunch, and they really aren't doing anything. And that's the respect he had for World Vision. So the district governor of Uganda, there's 5 countries involved, took me to dinner a week later, and he said, we are so thrilled to be able to have this relationship. We knew World Vision was huge. We didn't know what they did or how to contact them. And it's been a very successful relationship. Then I've got another story about how they got so big and how the programs of scale work. So let me know when you're ready for that.
Do it up. I love it. I'm soaking it all in. All
right. So the minimum is 400,000 from Rotary, 400,000 World Vision. And that for World Vision is a very small project, and it takes a lot of time and effort and staff to put these together. And Rotary is not necessarily the quickest on getting the funds raised to get the project approved. I'll tell you, of all the projects I've done in the world, 5950 has been the absolute best in getting that done. They're a fabulous district to deal with.
Did you
But
hear that, everybody listening? We're the
Yeah.
best district in the world.
they really are. But of the, I went back and I asked for a meeting. I had a meeting in front of all of the Rotary Foundation trustees. So there was probably the trustees plus staff and other people, maybe 50 people in the room in Evanston. And my point was, and I had a PowerPoint presentation, that we need to stop doing these small projects, 800,000. And this, one of the trustees raised his hand. He said, "Excuse me, are you saying these $800,000 projects are small?" And I said, they are. They literally are very difficult for the NGO to do. All the staff time and work that has to go in and the uncertainties. We've really got to get these up to the $10 million range. And out of that meeting came what's called programs of scale. And if you haven't heard about it, the very first programs of scale awarded was $2 million from Rotary, $2 million from the Gates Foundation, and $2 million from World Vision. And it's in Zambia. It's facilitated by World Vision. It's a malaria project. And it was a follow-on to a malaria project we had completed with the foundation that was the largest malaria project they'd ever done. So it was the success of that led to a $6 million project.
That's so cool. And we've got about 45 seconds left here in this segment. I just want to make a comment about this again. What I love about that story is we're thinking too small. Like, it doesn't mean that our impact is too small. It's just that we're making a partnership with somebody who's got a sledgehammer, and we're trying to hit it with like a little kid's toy. And so we're not using it properly. So then how do we figure out how to leverage this relationship and, really leverage that matching? So I think that's so cool to change that thought process and that paradigm.
And you helped to facilitate that.
You sure
We'll
did.
compare it to polio when you come back.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
I love it. Why don't we just head out a little early here?
Sounds good. As a reminder, you are listening to Searching for Service. I'm Kelly Kirk.
And I'm Joe Kirk. We'll be right back.
Hello and welcome back to Searching for Service, brought to you by Rotary District 5950 and 5960. I'm Kelly Kirk.
And I'm Joe Kirk.
As a reminder, you can find us on your favorite podcast platforms.
And look up Searching for Service, and you'll find us there. Make sure to like, comment, and go ahead and drop us a 5-star review. That'd be great.
We would love it. In our last section, if you were tuning in for the first time, how sad, because you've missed 3 really great sections.
Go back and listen to
it. Kim Lorenz, who's a Rotary liaison between Rotary and World Vision. And I'm going to let Joe section us back into this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that, we've talked so much about the impact of World Vision, Rotary, that partnership, and how World Vision has helped Rotary stretch its boundary, like its borders and boundaries, and thinking about projects and about, how to raise money. And man, I can't remember where we're going to go with this now.
Well, Kim was going to kind of make a connection point to World Vision, what they're doing with Rotary plus polio, the efforts around polio and eradicating it.
See, I was going to get there. So Kim, talk a little bit about how the connection between World Vision and polio and Rotary, how that's worked and how that's the
correlation here is that Rotary clubs are limited in these countries with their capacity, their time capacity, their time constraints, their financial constraints. And so when we're doing these partnerships, that's the biggest leveraging. It's not that World Vision is matching funds, leveraging your funds, but it's leveraging that expertise, training the club while they do projects. And a good example would be polio. So Rotary International made the decision, rightfully so, that they weren't going to get the global eradication of polio done through Rotary clubs for the same reasons. They don't have the time or the expertise. So I was with 20 people on the border of Sudan. I'm in Ethiopia, and we're doing polio immunizations with the community health workers. And in that community, Hilton was doing a big water project with World Vision. And so one of the guys in my group, he said, well, there's the water guy from World Vision. So we signaled him over. He came by and he said, well, we have an office right around the corner. There's 86 World Vision offices in Ethiopia. So he said, would you like to come up for a coffee service? So coffee was invented in Ethiopia. And if you've ever had the coffee service, they roast the beans right there and make fresh coffee. You've never had a caffeine jolt like you get out of that. They're pretty good.
Quite a jolt, huh?
One of the Rotarians sitting there, there's 20 of us sitting in this room with his coffee service at the World Vision office. And one of them said, so what do you do here? I mean, what does World Vision do? Which is a question a lot of Rotarians have. And he said, well, you've been out with the health workers doing polio. As an example, he said, you saw the water project that we're doing with Hilton. We do schools, we do health, we do education, we do polio or food security. But you saw you were working with the health workers. Well, the 40 health workers in this, I'll call it a county, they have a different name for it, were all hired, trained, and they're paid and managed by World Vision. So in many countries, Ethiopia, India, Afghanistan, many of the countries where you have polio immunizations going on, it's the NGOs, World Vision being the largest in the world, that the WHO, that all the organizations that are funneling the funds in, that are coming from Gates, coming from Rotary, they all end up, I think, at the WHO or some big organization. Then they go out and contract with NGOs who hire and train the people to do the work. So that's the correlation. So you've got this relationship between World Vision and Rotary that most people are unaware of.
Yeah.
We've done $30 million worth of just quote unquote Rotary projects. We just got approved for the first environmental. It's the largest and the first one approved by the foundation in Niger. It's a $1 million environmental project. You think, oh, what's environmental? It's not just planting trees. It's a whole area of Niger that's been denuded by the people because they don't know the difference. And so this is agricultural regeneration, where they're going through with irrigation and replanting of trees and crops and cash crops and so forth. But again, it's the education of the community members. You go plant the trees, they're all going to die. So it's just a great collaboration and relationship that we've been able to develop for over 20 years. I've been doing this, and they just keep getting better.
Well, what does the relationship look like to you in 20 years? What do you hope and aspire that the relationship looks like in the future?
Yeah, Joe, it's a great question. We are really trying to push the Rotary Foundation, and I think you're seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. When they did this programs of scale, instead of your district, as an example, having to use your DDF and raise some money to get an 80% match from the foundation, what they did is, I think it was 10-1. Whatever the club came up with, the foundation matched at a 10-1 ratio. That's how they came up with $2 million from Rotary. World Vision matched with $2 million. Then the Gates Foundation put in $2 million. That's the future of this, where we don't lose that local Rotary Club engagement, which we kept on the programs of scale. But we need to be doing $10 million projects. And so if your district came in and said, okay, we can raise $300,000 in the district, and that could turn into a 10-1 match. There's $3 million. Then World Vision would match $3 million. We have USAID. We have the Gates Foundation. That's what they want. The USAID, the Gates Foundation, they don't want to do these little $800,000 projects. They want to do things that have great impact. Of course, the sustainability is always there when you're dealing with someone like World Vision. But all your people that foundations, big ones that get into these, they want big impact and big projects that have long-lasting effects, not small ones.
I love that, though, because sometimes I think as Rotarians and as Rotary, we do rest on our laurels a little bit because we do so much work, and sometimes we forget about we can do so much more. We can do so much more and so much bigger,
on a larger scale,
and leverage relationships at a higher level. I think this has been one of my favorites of interviews of just listening to like where we should be and where we can go. I always like planting that carrot way out in the far away and Let's go chase it. And I think I'm hoping that everybody that's listening to this is really taking away that, I think we can acknowledge that we do a lot. And I don't think that we want to, undermine that. But there's so much more we can do. And there's so many organizations that we partner with that are waiting for us to do more.
Yeah.
They're like
Rotary clubs. I see it all over the world do phenomenal things. And, my club included, they're involved with so much. I'm in a fairly large club. Rotary all over the world, they're constantly doing massive, projects that are just great. This is just one segment. It's an opportunity to do something on a greater scale, but it certainly, you don't ever want to take away what Rotary does day in and day out around the world. It's just phenomenal. And I see it. I'm in these countries seeing it. And
do you have a goal that you would like to put out on this show for the size of a project that you would like to see done in the next 5 years?
The goal I had was 10 million, and I believe there's one in process that's going to exceed that.
Well, we better put it at least 25 million then.
Yeah.
I can't talk about that, but it's upwards from 20 to 30 million. So that'll be a first big test on that.
Oh, wow.
But I think on the ongoing day to day, it would be that we get districts like 5950 that are so well managed, have had great leadership. And I'm not trying to blow smoke at 5950. I've done, I think
it's working. But
it's just there's some great districts around the world, but I just felt the leadership there has always been just exceptional. And but you get a district like 5950 to lead the way, or Atlanta, or one of these bigger districts that my district, just for the first time I've ever heard, finally went over $1 million in DDF in every Rotarian every year funding. So I was thrilled about that.
Yeah, congratulations. It's really great.
Yeah, I'd like to see where we're doing, at least 2 of these $10 million projects getting funded every year and really scale this up.
I love that. So Rotary, people that are listening right now, you just had the gauntlet thrown down. Like, we need to answer the bell and, really support Kim and all that he's done. And thank you so much for being the liaison between us and World Vision and continue to foster that great relationship. So,
and thank you for being a guest on our show today.
Well, you guys do a great job. I'm just thrilled to be here, and it was just been a real enjoyable day.
Well, and we'll both read your book, and we'll have you back on.
You'll love the book, and I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
I'm your host, Kelly Kirk.
And I'm the co-host, Joe Kirk.
This is your reminder to stop searching
and start serving. Have a good one.